All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast, which is the first for the new year, Ben, of our next installment of the summer series.
There you go, Bryce. Happy New Year to you too. It's going to be a massive 2024. Cannot wait. Huge shows coming up in summer series. Back into the depth of everything going on in February with the property market. It's going to be huge. Going to be huge, Bryce.
Mate, I love the energy and enthusiasm that you've brought into 2024 and almost as much as I love the story that we're sharing today. We are talking to a single female property investor who knows how to do it all, Ben. What are we going to cover?
Well, mate, this is not a boring story. We have got diving around the world. We've got being educated around the world. We've got working around the world as part of this story. So definitely not boring. This is living. This is lifestyle by design, as you said. So I can't wait to hear all about Jasmin's exciting story.
Folks, we have got so much energy to bring to 2024, and this episode is where it all starts. Let's rip into the show.
Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, Ben, we've got a very special guest on this edition of the summer series. We are talking to TPC listener Jazz. Welcome to the Property Couch, Jazz.
Hello.
Hello.
Very proud to be here. I've been cheering for you for so long now.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I think it's really brave when someone comes on and is prepared to talk about what's going on for them, and I'm really looking forward to having the conversation with you. And you know what summer series is like, Jazz. You've said that you've listened to a few, so we want to get to know you. We want to go all the way back to the start of the story. So can you tell us what the money stories were like when you were growing up in your household?
Yeah, of course, I was thinking of that already, like coming into this. And I think my money and table story started very early on when my parents were still together, like very middle-class family. And I don't know, we weren't rich, but we weren't poor, nothing, like something in between. They were really young when they had me. For 9 years, I was a single child until my sister came. And because of that, I also partly grew up with my grandparents. So I come back to that in a second. So as I said, conversation at the table was probably not really about money as such, but there was always the sense of, like, my mum early on said, if you want something, you need to work for it. And she always wanted to kind of make sure that we understand that things don't come flying from the sky. And I say that because my grandparents, they spoiled me quite a bit. So if there was a new Barbie, like Jasmin wanted a new Barbie, very often they would buy the new Barbie and then my mom would get angry. And I never really understood why she would. Now it makes total sense. So I cannot complain. It was a great childhood in that way. And very... Like when I was maybe 12, the minimum age of working was maybe 13, like around there. But I wasn't just there yet, but I needed to work. So I said to Mum, can we pick up a job, like delivering newspapers? It's on your name, but I do it. And in the beginning, she actually walked with me to do it. So I earned my first money to save as well. And yeah, I was a good saver. I'm probably still a good saver. And then my parents separated. So my mom was always there. And now this is an interesting one. I looked up the word, a frugal one. I'm from Germany. So some of the words don't really translate. But frugal, I had to look up whether that's a positive or negative thing, because somehow it has that negative sentiment. But what I mean with her, she never not provided anything for me. Or how do I say? Like she always was very frugal with herself, less with me, but it also translated into like really thinking what we're purchasing, I guess. And then my parents separated. My dad was always the big spender. probably overspender. And my mom was the responsible one. So then all of a sudden my dad left the picture, and he didn't quite support us in a way financially as he should have. And I think in retrospect, I look at my mom and she's like this power woman, having a part-time job with my sister, like supporting my sister and myself through our teens. And my sister was quite young. But anyway, so things changed a little bit. My grandparents were there as well, to support us. But my mom was always like, I need to work for my money. Like, she kind of almost refused to take money, but there was always the safety net of my grandparents.
And the grandparents on your mother's side?
Interestingly, no, from my dad's side.
Wow, that does
Wow.
make it a little bit more complex. Look, obviously this is new information that we're learning here, and if I'm going too far into this, you can always step me back. With the relationship breakdown, how much of that do you think had to do with their differences around money behaviours, frugality versus spending? Were there arguments around money in the household?
Never that if my dad wanted a BMW, and we couldn't quite afford it, maybe that I've heard, but never like really consciously. Like my dad, like when I said he was more irresponsible with money, that was probably also reflected in his lifestyle choices outside everything. So maybe it's not the direct relationship between money and their breakdown, but it probably had a part in it.
It's an indirect relationship. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
So, there's a bit to lean in there, right? So, let's go to the job, right? So, at 12, you say it's pretty standard for 13 for jobs, but you wanted to try a little earlier. What was the spark that was causing you to want to get that independence and that income at that age?
I think it's just my mum telling me, you need to work and earn your things that you want to buy. I was never, ever, and I think I'm still not materialistic. Like, I don't have brands. Up until today, sometimes my girlfriends, they tell me about a handbag brand, and I'm like, never heard of it. Or, I still don't know the difference between Gucci and Chanel bags. And frankly, I would never spend that money on a bag, right?
Yeah.
However, there are a few things that I wanted, and that my mom said, if you want that, you kind of need to save for it, and pocket money was just not doing it. Like, I didn't get there quick enough. So I guess that was the spark of it. And I also really like the idea of working. God knows why. Like, I don't love the idea of working today, but but I guess if you enjoy it.
With wanting to work, it serves a purpose, and a lot of people get a lot of enjoyment out of work that they do. In terms of, so I'm trying to paint this picture. So your grandparents on your father's side, tell us about their sort of financial situation. Were they comfortable, or were they middle class or lower middle class? Tell me.
So and that's why I brought them into the story, because they came from nothing. My granddad was like a refugee from, wars, and he came to Germany when he was really young from a refugee camp, how he always tells us about. And he had like a job. I wish you guys would know, but Otto Versand. So that's it's a big company in Germany that back in the days they had catalogs, and then the catalogs went into the houses, and then you would choose your things that you wanted to buy, and then you put it on a little paper, and then someone would pick that up and you would get it delivered. Super novel back then. And he was the guy who picked up the catalogs in the headquarters and then delivered them to the houses, and then went back to do the sales technique to get, people to buy more.
Yeah, okay.
And so that was his start in working life in Germany. And then by the end, when I got to know him, he was like a director, like really high up in that company. And he really worked himself up there, like, so from the foundation. And like, that is probably one of the biggest aspirations that I have, like from him, like from nothing to, like a really influential person. So he was, I would still say middle class, but he was definitely a type of person that would buy whatever he wanted, loved his Mercedes, we're German, so holidays were not a problem. We would always go on holidays, a yearly holiday with them as well. So I don't know, when does middle class stop and, the other ones start? Like, I don't actually know.
Jazz, I'm reading a book at the moment called Drive, and inside that book, there's, it's obviously all about motivations, external and internal, intrinsic motivations, blah blah blah. And there's a section in chapter sort of 3 of the book that does talk about, the research we've all done around experiences and having lots of money there isn't a direct correlation with happiness. But one of the interesting things that came out, and we've talked about this on the pod before, which is around if you have great experiences, that does give purpose and meaning around having money, and you get that's where you get your happiness from, not so much from building a rich value of money. But the other interesting thing in the research that came out from that was those people who were successful, they got great joy out of actually giving money away. Now, in this particular case, what your grandfather is potentially talking about is he's come from nothing, he's worked his way up to a directorship, and he got great joy out of being able to provide, whether it be a Barbie doll or right through to potentially these holiday experiences. And that would have been super rewarding and super powerful for him in terms of what the value of that money gave for him. And that's showing up in the research, as well as spending money on your own experiences, that people get a lot of joy in terms of sharing their money.
Interestingly that you said that, and I swear we didn't talk before about that.
No.
What we really got the biggest joy out, and it drove my grandma nuts, is like give money away. Like, as in, we are not a tip culture. He would like tip really big. He would find a homeless person and invite them over for Christmas. Like things like that. Like, and I learned that from him. I get a lot of joy out of that as well. I guess hence the charity that I'm running.
Yes. So if I can stay on this line of sort of inquiry, and then you've got your mum on your other side who's very frugal, and obviously maybe that sort of, that ability to get dolls and a couple of other things early on, but you wanted potentially more of those material things early on. I think it sounds like you've matured a lot since that particular time. How did that make your mum feel around, what she was giving you? Because you mentioned earlier she's a superwoman, being able to obviously raise 2 kids as a single mother. Sounds like dad didn't, sort of come to the party in terms of his maintenance payments and all that type of thing. So bad dad. In terms of, so your mum's gift to you was obviously the ability to teach you at a young age about independence and effectively being self-sustaining. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. And I only now honor and value that, obviously, in the later stages.
In life, yeah.
And very often, and you asked whether she was happy with the dolls and, the gifts. She wasn't. And I do remember, actually, I'm not sure if I remember or if she told me afterwards when I was older, that there were arguments between my mum and the grandparents for spoiling me, so to speak. But yeah, I think I didn't feel that back then.
I'm having the same conversations with my grandparents at birthday parties and all that, where I'm like, guys, I'm trying to teach them how to earn something, reward for effort. And they just dump $100 for their birthday, each of them. It's like, my God, this is hard work. But so there you go. So it is that challenge. Like, grandparents just want to be the besties, don't they? They just want to, give and keep giving. So it's a really challenging time for parents who are trying to teach those types of behaviours, and then the grandparents come in with all of the super gifts.
I think we just have to acknowledge that our grandparents just want to take that role of, my dad says, if I knew grandparent was going to be this much fun, I would have done it first. But if you think about, so there's a bit there. You separated parents. You've got influence. Single child for 9 years. Mum projects frugality. Dad projects spender. And granddad projects aspirational intent. Which of the 3 were the biggest influence on you in those early formative years?
I want to say mom and granddad, of course. I do have the craziness of my dad a little bit, like go out and enjoy life. I still have that. And when we go a little bit further after my childhood, you might hear that in my story. So I definitely have that from him. So it's great to have that triangle rather than having just one of them. So yeah, but I want to say mostly from my mom and granddad.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, fair enough.
So okay, so your first job at 12, but let's fast forward to the first independent job. So you've left home, you're managing your own independence. What does that look like for you? Are you frugal or are you a spender?
Well, I've had jobs all my teens, so I would say I was very independent already from whenever it was legal to when I left the home. And I was definitely never a spender, ever. I was always saving Excel spreadsheets, um, like that. But even before Excel spreadsheets, I had it in my head and I knew how much I want to spend versus not, like, and how much I want to save. And if I spent something big, $1,000 on a holiday, I would be like, oh my God, I would ask mom in the very beginning. I remember the first holiday I just booked and I didn't ask mom, like, do you think that's a good idea? And then, well, that felt bad. So that was like my early 20s, felt weird. Yeah, but I would say I am naturally a saver, which sometimes probably comes across as cheap. So I looked up all these words because you can be cheap, stingy, frugal, all these words, they kind of they happen somehow in my head. I just don't want to have like the
You know what the
negative.
other one that should be in your head as well? Smart.
Well, yeah,
Let's throw that one in the mix as well, right?
Clever, yeah, responsible,
Yeah, responsible. Yeah,
yes, delayed gratification, yeah.
once you worked out that money makes money, life changes a bit.
it does.
So okay, so you then decide to travel the world. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because that's the spirit of your dad that you've just described, having fun. Because what you did sounds a fair bit of fun.
Yeah.
It does. And it's probably also a reason why I'm sitting here with you, because I finished high school and then I left to go and do work and travel in Australia. And all funded by myself. So I was 19 and I saved everything up until then. And then I don't know how I did it. I think I had like 5,000, 6,000, and I survived a whole year. God knows how I did it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Hostels, shared rooms.
Yeah. Well, you're clearly resilient. You know how to make things work. So you come to Australia. What were you doing?
All right. So I started off being a nanny, 3 months. It was very safety driven because I would come to this faraway country, and in my head, I'm not even such a child's person. But like for me, it was a family away from my family that I could just kind of arrive. And then once I settled in here, I was like comfortable to do the backpacking with my friend who was also doing a nanny job. So then we flew to Cairns, and that's probably where a big decision shaped my life. I was on a boat at the Great Barrier Reef, and a dive instructor, he was like flirting with me and saying, you need to do your diving license. And I'm like, nah, snorkeling is fine. And here you hear me, nah, I don't want to pay for that license. Snorkeling is fine. So he gave us a for free introduction. And I came up, and the first thing I said was like, oh my God, I need to do this. And so then I did my diving license, and then I had a little thing with the dive master on the boat, and he told me all about what he's doing. He's learning to become a dive master, and I thought that was amazing. And yeah, once you get to know me, if I like or love something, I research and do a lot of work to get really knowledgeable in that area. And diving in that moment was just, it fascinated me, and it just gives you so much zen as well. Anyway, long story short, we traveled a little bit, came back to Cairns, and we did our dive masters, and that's kind of an assistant instructor course. And yeah, so that was amazing, and that basically then shaped the next years of my life.
So how did it shape the next years?
Then I had to leave Australia, no visa, So then I left, and I wanted to study because the responsible side, my mum's side in the head told me I need to study and do a degree, and I didn't want to do it in Germany, so I did it in the Netherlands. And the reason of that was that it's English, and I wanted to have an international degree, and it was also for free, like in Germany. So you get subsidized through Germany. So it was a smart move in my opinion. So we went there, and when I say we, I went there and studied for 4 years. I must say my grandparents kindly supported my rent, so that was a thing. And I did work though. I had a part-time job, and then I was like, okay, so now I have my bachelor's degree. Then my head was itchy again, that side. And so I went away again and went on a diving year. So I lived in Thailand. That's probably another thing that shaped me, like seeing how people live there and how that's also absolutely okay. Like to live in a one-room bungalow. It was so nice, by the beach. And that was amazing. And I taught diving. Lived a dream with very little money. Like the income you get in Thailand is, as you can imagine, quite little. But it was fine. And my goal was always to have money to purchase my return flight back. And then I worked on a cruise ship in the Caribbean. So that was now, when was that? I don't know even. We cruised in the Caribbean. It was a German cruise ship. Salary is also quite low, but everything that you earn on a cruise ship is basically going on your saving account, unless you go partying and pay for it. But lots of it is funded there anyway. So everything that I earned there, again, I put it on my savings account, because now I came back and I had to catch up with all my friends that were now already going for a master degree. And in Germany, a master degree is 2 years. So I was like, okay, so I did 1 year of fun. So now I need to catch up. So what did I do? I found a master's degree that was doable in terms of money. That was in Scotland, in Edinburgh. And it was just 1 year. So I enrolled in that one. Was very lucky that I got accepted. It was a really good business school. And then I did that. And after that, I rekindled with a man that I met in Australia during all the time, because I did also a study abroad that I skipped over now in Sydney. And I came back for him, basically. And so I came to Australia, and that's then when I settled in Australia. So then at this point, I was a very experienced dive instructor, well-educated, but not had no experience in a corporate life. And I started off as a dive instructor in Manly in an oceanarium, like a shark dive instructor in an oceanarium. And that was amazing. And then the first job came up. No, it didn't come up. I was invited as a UX testing participant, because I was German and they wanted to user experience test an app that I think it was Australia, Travel Australia. They built this app and they wanted to test it, and they looked for foreigners. They invited me. I went through the session and I said to this Dutch girl, "What is this job? This is amazing." And she's like, "Well, this is that." And I'm like, "Never heard of it. I want to do it." Left my CV. A few months later, they called me and said, "Well, we need an assistant." And yeah, the history starts there from my current job.
So your current job now is in terms of doing experience design with financial apps. So that's pretty incredible in terms of that. So to put some time context on this has all happened sort of between 2004 and 2012. Does that feel about right?
12 is when I came to Australia. So then, yeah.
Yeah, and then so that's right. You came to Australia, back to Australia 2012, did the dive work in Bondi, and then eventually got into corporate work using your business masters in that particular space. And so you're settling into Sydney by the sounds of things, with your partner at the time or without the partner?
We lived separately. So yep. I was independent.
Yep.
I was with him because then, yeah.
Yep.
But I settled in by myself, let's say it like that.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then what's next?
What's next? Then I split up with that partner.
Yep.
But by that time I had my visa, so I could stay. Lucky. And then, I just basically worked in the corporate life until a few years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, when my dad's side was in my head again. I was like, I'm early 30s now. it's the last time, the last chance to do something great. And so I quit my job and I flew up to Cairns, and I was a dive instructor again for a year, which was amazing. Again, like minimum wage, 15 hours a day of working at the most amazing place. But again, I think I saved quite a bit of money in that time. I don't know how again, but rent is a lot cheaper there. And because I was working on a boat quite a bit as well, I could save some money. Yeah, so I finished that one. Love Cairns, by the way, in case you haven't noticed. Love Cairns. And then I came back to Sydney and back to the bank where I worked before, and they took me back. And they said, "Did you have enough?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm back in the office now." And yeah, so that was that. And I've been there ever since.
Well, I guess there's a couple of things that jump out of the page here, right? So you're tenacious and you're resourceful and you're often on the chase for adventure, right? So you're clearly happy to back yourself in on some of these things, right? Because you go, well, take us through the thought process of some of these changes. Oh, I'm just going to go to Amsterdam to study. Oh, I'm going to go to Scotland because I can knock a year off. Oh, by the way, I've landed a job in banking. Oh, I feel the need to go back to Cairns. Like it seems like amazing as we recall this this dear diary of yours. But are you feeling any anxiety at this point in time, or are you just like channeling my dad? He chases adventure. I'm just going to channel him at this point.
Look, when you talk it through like that and summarize my life, it gives me anxiety right now. However, in the moment, I'm a big believer in finishing something when it's at its best so that you can come back to it, if that makes sense. So I didn't want to leave it until I'm so annoyed or something, and then you don't want to come back because you would not like it. That whole split career thing has been a thing throughout my whole life. I needed the diving. I needed it sounds, I don't want to say it in that way, but like the corporate life gives a lot of different stimulation to the head than the teaching diving. Teaching diving, I'm not going to lie, it's one of the scariest things as well, because you need to talk to people and they need to listen. If they don't, they might die. So it's like a different kind of challenge. But that challenge almost gets boring after some time. So then I come back to the corporate life, and this is like the motivation of like why I go and do different things, because maybe I get bored at a certain thing.
No, there's a lot of need for stimulation in terms of what you've been talking about there. Hey, I'm then going to move on to a note that I see on the screen here that talks about, you then thought, okay, well, I've saved all this money. I'm going to learn to invest. Tell me a little bit about what the first trials and tribulations around investment look like for you.
Well, the first bit of investing was probably always chasing the best savings account. Like, would literally open up every saving account at different banks. Even though I was working for one bank, I would go to other banks to put my money there. Yep. So that was very smart and responsible. But then I met someone, and he was into day trading, and he basically didn't do much else than day trading in foreign exchanges and CFDs, contract for difference. And I was like, I'm like close to the German economy. I'm close to Aussie economy. It's actually quite handy for me to read even more into this and like do day trading between the two exchanges.
Yep.
Worked really well. I earned a lot of money. I did it on the side until it didn't. So then it crashed. There were a few reasons for it, and it was all my fault. But yeah, I basically lost all my money that I've ever earned. Like literally to zero. On that day that I lost everything, I had a credit card debt, because I do the thing that you advise to, like buy everything on credit card and pay it off on the due date. So I had like accumulated all my expenses on credit card, but like my balance was zero because it was all wiped out. So I don't know if you know, but obviously you do. But like in day trading, you can earn a lot, but you can lose even more than you invest. So that basically happened.
So you had leverage positions, I'm assuming, in CFDs or something along those lines?
Yeah, quite a bit. And I the reason it was a domino effect, and that happens. It's
That
like
does.
textbook.
Yeah.
I went to Mexico
Of course
and
you did.
diving holiday, and
Yeah.
I informed my bank that I'm going to Mexico, because sometimes when these trades go sour, you have to fund your account. And anyway,
Margin
I told
call.
my bank that I'm in Mexico. What I did not realize is the time difference and how markets close and open differently. Well, I did know that, but I kind of ignored it. And I also didn't put stops on, which I should have. So all these little different mistakes that I've done meant that at one point everything closed, all my trades closed, and I couldn't fund them. Like, there is like a bit of a time period that you can fund them, but because the bank blocked me to fund my transfer, it was all too late. I was on the phone to Australia trying to get the money, but it all closed. So I was sitting in Mexico and zero. So I came back to Australia, and then I had zero. So that was interesting.
So take us to, like, okay, so we've just flippantly talked about something that was major, right? So you've just come back from Mexico to a zero bank account and a credit card debt. What is running through your mind? What are you thinking at this point, and what are you doing to pivot?
I had to tell myself not to freak out. I'll be fine. I had to keep on telling myself that, because I get anxiety just thinking about it. I don't often talk about it because it's a bit of a shame. Like, it's a very shameful event that happened. But one of the things that I knew that will happen is that I will get a tax return, because I made a lot of profit and a lot of loss. But eventually I would get money back because the loss was a lot higher. And so I was just counting on that to kind of bounce me back. It wasn't that much, like, as in, I obviously not that as much as I lost, but it was something to start with. And now I'm trying to remember when the time was and when the tax return, came in. But basically what happened is, like, I came in at zero. I knew I'd get my next paycheck. As I already explained, I'm not a big spender. So with the one paycheck, I would cover this, probably don't pay anything else. And then with the next paycheck, I would start saving again. And that's exactly what happened. So yes, it knocked me out, but, like, you look at me now. I'm still standing.
So Jez, push back on me if it's sensitive. But what's shameful about wanting to get ahead? Like, clearly in the rear vision mirror, we can all agree that it's a high risk strategy, and you wouldn't be, to beat the market's very difficult. So, but it's not like you were trying to do anything other than get ahead. So which part of that is shameful for you? And tell me to back off again if it's too raw.
It's the uneducated gambling almost. So basically, when I was totally in it, I wouldn't have spoken about it like this. I do talk about it now like that. So I did obviously educate myself quite a bit. Like, I wouldn't just do that. But I don't know. I think I did these 3 mistakes in a row, or 4, from going on a holiday, not putting a stop on, and so on. I should really not have done that. That's the shame. Like, why did I do that? Like, why did I do these mistakes? I knew better. I definitely knew better. But somehow I was not educated enough. So I guess, warning everyone, don't go into day trading if you don't know exactly what you're doing.
And because obviously there's lots of promotional content out there on social media about getting into trading. I mean, you can't go without watching a YouTube channel if you're not an investor without sort of being shown some guy walking on the Spanish Riviera, or showing his castle in Ireland, and all of the money that he makes through day trading and all of that type. Like, there's heaps of those sort of guys out there. Tell me about the gentleman who got you into day trading. Did he have a similar experience? Like, did he have big losses at the same time, or was he successful in terms of what he did?
To my knowledge, he's been successful. He definitely has, like, a few open trades that might sit at, like, a loss.
Yep.
But, like, I think overall he's been quite successful. And he's also the one that always warned me and said, Jazz, don't get into it if you don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, tell me more. So I always wanted to get more info out of him. So he's been quite successful.
Okay.
Okay, so wow. All right, so there's a fair bit up to this part of the story, but there's a lot of cool stuff to come, right? So you've got this experience with day trading, but then it appears that you decide to channel what you do really well, and that's save. So what did you decide to save the money for in 2021?
For the house that I'm living in now. Yeah, but I would say I didn't save up until then so I could buy this house. This house was my whole life. Sometimes I feel has been a bit of luck, but then people remind me you need to also go after your luck. So I didn't, like, when you asked me, I did save quite a bit, and then in 2021, that was 1 year after the pandemic, I noticed that I was sitting in my shoebox townhouse in Newtown with my 2 to 4 greyhounds. And I had friends down the coast, South Coast, and they lived here and by the beach, by the lake. And I loved it. We would visit a lot. And I was like, why am I spending so much rent every week into this townhouse when actually I'm not going out there? I was in the middle of Newtown. I didn't go to the pubs because I think the whole pandemic changed everything, right? I was close to work, but I didn't go to work because that was also shut down. So I was like, why don't I buy a house? So because I work at the bank, we sometimes do have like webinars and like a bit of information events. And one of them was like, can you buy a house like now? Something like that. And you go to this event and then you get connected with a lender and they will kind of go through the numbers with you and then give you a number. And then I looked at the number and I'm like, all right, can't buy in Sydney, obviously. But then I looked at the numbers here down at the South Coast and it just in my head, it made sense. Like, why would I keep on paying rent? And so then the story started with me finding a house while everyone was trying to find a house as well.
It happens because that's what happens when interest rates are at record lows and borrowing powers are high, and there's a want and then there's a need, and ultimately that's how it all plays out. And obviously now with hybrid working environments, we're able to spend more time away from offices, and that has allowed that to sort of happen. You, in terms of your discovery, you found us how long ago from a podcast point of view?
Probably shortly after. So I bought it in June 21. I found you guys when I was thinking of getting a second house. Like at the end of that year or like in the beginning of the next, yeah.
So this is a classic case of you saying you don't do things by half, and when you engage into some interest, you're all in on that particular story. So, well, thank you for discovering our podcast and what you were listening for. Tell us about that. In terms of what did the pod do for you in terms of building your knowledge base and allow you to help take action in terms of what your story looks like?
It's interesting because the reason I found you was actually because I got bombarded with Spruker's messages on, not messages, like, Instagram feeds of like, buy this off the plan and all these promises that they make sounded really good. And because if something sounds too good, it's probably not true. So I went with that and I started my research, and there's another like open chat in the internet. I forgot now what it was. Like I came across like an open chat where lots of people, and you're also contributing, and people were starting to talk about Property Couch to get info or like to get educated. And then that was very shortly before my trip to Germany. So now I know when that was. That was actually Christmas. So I went home for Christmas. So I found you guys, and then I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I can learn a little bit about that. And so, the 24-hour flight to go home. I still say home, Germany, by the way. Home is actually here now, but sorry. So then 24 hours I had time to listen to your podcast. So I downloaded all the ones that I thought were interesting just from like looking at the topics. Started off like you instructed, 1 to 20 to start off with. And then I just went through the list because obviously you've had like hundreds by then. one by one. And I remember with my headphones, I was listening to it, falling asleep, listening to it, going back, because you're on the plane, you always, fall asleep. But like I went through all of them. I'm like, and the more I listened, the more I got inspired and the more I wanted to know. Because of my first house, I got a grant, like the 5% grant, like the one where you only have to pay 5%. So I had like a bit of money that I thought I was spending, but I didn't. I had it sitting there against my variable loan, but you know how it is. You still have that money there. And my passion for cans, I looked at cans. I was like, I want to buy in cans because, and so
Hang on,
then
because let's lean in on that. You wanted to buy in cans because what were you thinking? What talk us through what the thought process
I
was
was
there?
thinking that maybe in the far future, I will move there in my retirement. However, I have since learned in your podcast that you should not mix your purposes, like my emotions, to cans and my investment idea. So that's something I learned, which I thought was eye-opening, as well as that and I think I noticed that after the first house, that even though I live in a house and I have a house and like see houses, I'm not an expert in houses. I painfully noticed that with this house, very lucky as well with that house that I'm living in. But basically, I didn't want to do the repeat mistake of like my previous investment where I do things half baked. As in, you had a good point of like, if there is people that know what they're doing, why don't you give them money? And let me tell you, the money that I gave to get that service didn't come lightly, because as you know, I consider my spending, and it hurt almost, but then I got so much back. And that sounds like I'm advertising for you, but I actually am, because I'm like talking to my colleagues and like give away your books that you sent me, because I'm just so fascinated, like how easy it was in the end to get that second place.
So take us through that journey. What did you do to make that decision that you thought, well, I only know so much. There are other people out there who know more, but there are spruikers. So how do I work out who's the good guys from the bad guys? And then to make that investment, because that's what it is. It's a cost, but in theory, it's an investment into hopefully your future, right?
Oh, and you get so much back. Like you invest, but like you actually get back. So first of all, I get time back. That's an important one. But I had a set of money, and I don't even know how much it was. But I looked in cans, and I could almost pay off like a little flat or rental. And in my head, I couldn't find the answer to, should I get like a house that I can pay off and it just starts to generate money? In my head, that made the most sense. And I couldn't understand why this is not the answer. But then I was like, surely it's too easy again, too good to be true. And so then I engaged your services with Brandon. What is it called? It's not financial advice. What is it? The
property planning.
The property planning.
Yep.
And basically that was one of the leading questions I had for him. Like, look, I have this amount of money and I'm thinking of buying that. Do you think that's the right decision? And he nodded like you do right now and listened to me and said, you're in the right place. Let's have a second meeting. And then in the second meeting, we opened up of what the best strategies are. And he explained why it's probably not the best, capital growth, things like that. And then also obviously with mixing the purposes, also not ideal. Long story short, he gave me another number and said, this is what you have and what you can kind of invest in. And then we made a plan. The first plan was wealth. And it told me, get a house now and another one in 25, or forgot what that was. But then he jumped to retirement and it said to me, this is your retirement outcome, which was amazing. However, I'm currently single, no kids. What am I going to do with all these properties and all this money? And then he said, well, there's a second option, which is the lifestyle option. I'm like, no, I'm listening. So we reduced the properties and reduced my work time, reduced the retirement age. That sounded attractive to me, like a middle balance. because the outcome was still like very sufficient for my retirement, right? And so I think there was a third plan. I annoyed him a little bit. What if? So he had to like do like a few plans for me. And then, long story short, we went with the lifestyle one. What happened from then?
Well, tell us a bit more. Okay, so lifestyle for you means, because you're currently full-time employed, but you also have this altruistic philanthropic side to you that you hinted at earlier in the episode. But you've got a charity that you do on the side. So how much did that come into your thinking, and endeavors like that come into your thinking based on the lifestyle that you're trying to create?
Look, if it was just solely up to me, I would just rescue dogs and have like a big shelter and just dedicate all my time to that. Side note, I would probably also not be happy because I would need that other stimulation, but that's just like the grass is always greener, right? But I guess there is a middle ground. And so there is a middle ground of doing part-time corporate life and part-time, more charity work. And yes, I do want to like dial down my full-time hours to maybe 4 days, to maybe 3 days, and then kind of get the best of both worlds maybe. So that was definitely a consideration, as well as retiring earlier. And that one was tricky because you know how I only came like late to Australia, so my super is probably not as high as like other people's, just because I probably have some equivalent super in Germany. We didn't even take that into account. But yeah. So all in all, lifestyle plan meant for me that I could confidently now go ahead and buy this second house, knowing all the other milestones that I will probably hit if everything goes to plan, that make me happy. So it removed uncertainty. I guess that, as a German, that's great.
As a German, that's
well,
great.
as someone who also likes certainty in a lot of respects of your life, right? And I think that's probably the financial transformation story. You've gone from uncertainty to now having line of sight. We've made the invisible visible to you, and that was my next question. How did it make you feel? What does that do for your confidence? What does that do for basically how you go about living your life, knowing that you've got all of these sort of elements stress tested, because you did, you're saying you say 3 plans, but you did 3 scenarios and then settled on a final plan. You did everything we talk about, which is income, protection, time, and target. So sort of income expenditure, I should say. So you're playing with those levers. What do they look like? What if I do a little bit of less work and do more of my contribution and meaningful work with my charity? Time and target. So how much time do I need? What's the number if I'm going to be single? Power woman who's going to be able to, what does my number look like? All of those things have been brought to the surface for you to make some consideration around that. So how did that make you feel?
It would be cheesy, but like it feels that I'm empowered. Yeah. But it is actually that word, like it makes me feel confident to go ahead and do whatever. Like I can still spend right now knowing that I have this investment property, because I know in my final plan that's all in there. So I won't lose my house. That was my mom always like, what happens if you lose that house? That was a big question for me to Brendan. Will I ever be in this major debt? Like as in all of a sudden I can't pay it anymore. I don't know why. That risk.
Yeah.
He took that away.
That risk is still live, but it's pretty small in terms of, because of the way in which the markets operate and so forth, and volatility in resi property. But the risk is there. But to your point, it's not as aggressive as day trading, where you can lose it all very quickly. It would play itself out over time, and like anything, this is a long-term plan that you put together for yourself that allows you choice of time and choice of things that you want to keep you busy. And really that's what life's all about. It's about having enough money to do the things you want to do with the people you want to do them with. So a pretty powerful outcome for you there, Jazz.
Yeah I guess one of the things I wanted to give back is when I bought this house, and then I found I wanted to find renters, and I said to the management company, my first thought, I do it myself, but then again, I listened to you. You shouldn't do that. But I told them, if you look for new tenants, my requirement is dogs. They should have dogs, ideally 2 greyhounds. But if not, then bigger dogs. I just wanted to give these people a chance that, like me, like you have 2 dogs and you're put into this bucket of, nah, not liked. So they're like amazing. So unfortunately, my previous tenants that had a dog, they had to leave early, and then we found another one. And instead of them showing me the application first, what did they send me?
Pictures of their dogs.
Yes, and I was like, okay, approved.
Yeah, no job. Track record for tenanting is appalling.
Want to turn it into a meth lab.
They've got dogs, so let them go. So, we're obviously tongue in cheek, but that's obviously something that you're really, really, really passionate about.
Wonderful.
Jazz, do you feel comfortable telling our audience how many properties are in your plan to achieve this lifestyle that you're after? How many investment properties you need?
Just this one and the one that I already bought. But there's this thing that you were talking about when you start, you want to do more and more and more and spend more and more and more. And that's where I am in my head. So I did call Daniel the other day and said, look, could I buy another one? And he was crunching the numbers for me. The reason I asked, because I did like a splurge. I did like a novated lease on a car that's coming on Friday. That wasn't in my plan. So Brendan will probably be annoyed with me, but I wanted to make sure that I can't buy another house before, which totally would be against my plan and everything would be ruined. So I'm actually glad it didn't work. And it didn't work because the plan didn't accommodate for it, right? So, yeah. So the 2 is it. The one that I have and the one that I'm having there. There is one thing in the plan where I can upgrade this house.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that in 2025. So that I think it's worth just pausing here for a sec. It's now broken the myth that you can hear the passion in your voice. We'll get you to plug the charity shortly, but there's things that you love to do with your life, and it can be done with your home and one investment property combined with the super, albeit a late start into the super game. Which kind of helps dispel the myth that you need plenty of these properties and you need to get yourself into an enormous amount of debt. It's actually not true, is it? You set the North Star and you work towards it, and you're actually experiencing what a lot of people experience, because they then the idea of becoming a property investor can be quite daunting for people doing it for the first time. But then once you get in the saddle and you get a bit of cadence up, and all of a sudden you're going, actually, I think I might need to scratch the itch on whether or not I could do more. And it just becomes those 4 levers that we talked about in the first 20 episodes where, okay, well, it might mean that I have to push it out a bit further, or it might mean I need to earn a bit more income, or it might mean that I get a bit more in retirement, or I might not be able to have those 4 days that I want. But you get that choice. The plan isn't one and done. You get to reflect and look at it and update it. And as you get better information and as you grow and mature and have different thoughts, mature in your thinking, I'm saying, you have different thinking around what you actually want for your lifestyle design, you can actually tinker and play with that. But I think the message here that I think that needs to be reinforced is one property, queue in the rack, can achieve what you want to achieve for the current plan that you have. And it's hopefully that's myth busting for a lot of people that's listening to this. So tell us about the charity, Jazz. It's I think if it's clear it's a dog mission here, but tell us about it and how you started it.
I didn't start it. My colleague did, so she's the founder of it. And then I adopted my girl. She's a greyhound, and just lots of passion for it because of the the racing industry. And then I learned, because, as I said, from Germany, so I didn't quite understand that there's this racing industry where people are just racing dogs, and then when they're end of life, not even end of life, end of race, they discard them. And back in the days, they would just get rid of them somehow. These days, they're trying to rehome them. There's a big waiting list, and our charity called Homeward Bound Hounds, we are like a very small group of foster carers that take in discarded dogs, place them in foster care, get them used to pet life, and then find loving families. And yeah, I'm pretty much like running that bit while also being a foster carer.
That's a beautiful message, and it's a beautiful story. And I'm sure we'll put everything in the show notes in terms of how they can learn more about you. I'm assuming just for people in New South Wales, or is this for people interstate as well? How to?
We do interstate. We mainly do ACT and New South Wales.
Okay.
But there's always options. Like our volunteers are so passionate. We drive miles and miles to bring the right dog to the right family. Also, fun fact, one of the biggest reasons I wanted to get this house that I'm living in is for the girls. Fun fact, guess where they are? Not in the yard, not spread out in this big house. No, just where I am in the office, in the dog bed. So greyhounds are really lazy, so they don't actually need that much space. I thought maybe they want to run around in the garden, but they're greyhounds. They just laze around.
They're beautiful. Got a beautiful mindset about them, a beautiful sort of behavioural element about them. So whippets or greys are a ripper type of dog. We've had them throughout the course of our friendships and family up at Yarrawonga. We've had lots of whippets and greyhounds and all those types of dogs. So well done for you for being able to do that. Hey, my final question relates to the More platform in terms of how you being able to use that. You've got here Money Smarts, yes, and loving it, and you're certainly using part of that. So what value does having all of the information in one particular place give you when it comes to sort of managing your financials?
It just accumulates all of everything that you put in, it just shows it. It brings it back to life in one graph or in one pager, how I always say. I mean, I've done this before in my very personal and tailored spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet. Yes. But obviously that one is a lot easier because you just go in. I always do it on the 4th of the month. I don't know why, but I just go in, update my numbers where I have to update them, and then it spits out all these numbers. And to be honest, month to month, it doesn't mean that much month to month.
Yeah.
I hope that my savings go up in general, but I think if you look at it yearly, it makes a lot more sense, how it grows. But yeah, it's this peace of mind for me as well to just see that I'm not overspending. September, October is always big spending month for me with all the bills and stuff. So I particularly look at that. As long as I'm not going backward, everything is fine.
Well, I mean, we all know that in some months, some of our costs, we've had other people on the summer series this time around, I think it was January to May, this was their big, sort of bills month where you got some of those annual costs and all that. Obviously, you can talk to your suppliers, utility suppliers, and maybe get that annualized or insurance policies and premiums, car premiums, those types of things. But that's sometimes where it will feel like it's going backwards, but over the course of a 12-month period, it's going to even itself out. And I'm looking at the way in which you're, organising your finances and running your money. You are on fire in terms of being able to, track that savings. It's a beautiful picture that I'm seeing inside your Money Smarts graphs and so forth. So an absolute credit to you. Bryce and I, one of our big missions, into what we're doing is about eliminating spreadsheets and getting people into the 21st century in terms of what that looks like. And this is going to be a great pathway for those types of things to happen. Our card view and all the way in which we're sort of organising things and, ASATs and historical tracking and all of those types of things as well are going to be an enormous addition to how people can organise and see their financial position over time. So, as being someone who plays in this space professionally, to also love what we are putting out there to be able to help people it warms my heart to know that, we're doing something right in terms of the value that we're providing. And I really appreciate that you're loving the tool that we put out there.
Absolutely.
Hey, Jazz, as I head for home too, there's a couple of things that I want to round out with you. The theme of the summer series is what money means to you. And you've said lifestyle choices. I think we've sort of talked to that. You just said peace of mind, and that was a big one for you. Freedom and choice to do what I want to do. I feel like your life up until this point has had lots of elements of that. So it just feels like the money just gets you to further reinforce what's really, really important to you. So I'll just pause for effect. Is there anything on any of those that you want to lean in on, or do you feel like we've covered that? Because money doesn't necessarily just mean materialism for people. You've said that throughout this conversation, but it's around experiences and just giving you a sense of security and peace. Anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think you summarized it really well. As I said, I'm not materialistic. I'm absolutely grateful. Like, I'm very grateful that I'm in the position that I am. I must say that because it's not, I don't know, not everyone has that privilege. Also, not everyone has the privilege to know about money that way. So I think I'm spreading the news, definitely. I'm trying to, help people understand of like investment and like best choices as well. But I also realized that people need to understand that themselves first. It's almost like quitting smoking. Like, you can't tell a smoker to quit smoking. They need to be on the pathway to do it, and then you can help them. Does that make sense? Like, so I came to this conclusion.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, well, Jazz, my final question, you may have already answered it, but I'll just lean in just to check in. But lots of people want to actually come and tell their story on the summer series, but something blocks them from putting their hand up from doing it, right? So, but you didn't. You put your hand up, and you came on, and you're vulnerable and sharing some of your stuff. So, what is it the message? If someone's listening to this, several thousand people are going to hear your message. What do you reckon is the thing that inspired you the most to come on and share your story that you want them to hear about all of your experiences to date and the way that you've set up your finances going forward?
Well, you keep on saying that people, they share their stories, and the person themselves, they feel it's a boring story. Like, there's nothing to value add. And you kept on saying your story's probably not boring. And then I reflected on all the questions that you always asked. And I'm like, oh, maybe people can learn from it or like get inspiration from it. You don't have to have a partner and 2 kids and 2 full-time jobs to have a house and maybe even an investment property. Like, you can do it on your own, like me as a single lady. And I think one of the blocker for me was to actually go on your website and put my story down, because I always listen to your podcast in the car going to work and back. And so I was like, I want to do it. Now I want to do it. And I come home and things got in the way. So next time, just do it. Next time when you like think that, like, just jump on the laptop and write it down. So that's what I did. Like, I literally just did it last week because I listened to you so often saying it. And I'm like, oh, I really want to do it. But then, I missed the boat.
I'm so glad you did. There's just so much fascinating about your story. It's just fun. I'll never get sick of it, but just the variety and the way you back yourself in and the stuff that you try and now your corporate life and then your charity life and just being a poster person for people who are your demographic. Who can go, hey, yeah, all right, there's some stuff there that I can lean into as well. So well done. Super courageous, super, super interesting. And I promise you it's not boring. And I promise anyone who's listening to this who probably had similar thoughts going, I didn't fill out the form because I felt like my story was too boring. I promise you every single person who comes on, Ben, we let them into our online world here. And we start talking. They say, I'm really nervous and I'm not sure that there's anything I need to that I can share. And then lo and behold, here we are some hour later and the nuggets of wisdom just keep dropping. So well done, Jazz. Thank you for putting your hand up. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being so brave. And on behalf of everyone here at the Property Couch, thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks, Jazz.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Well done. How cool a story was that, Ben? There's one thing you can say about Jazz is she's never going to die wondering. Like from dive instructor to the Great Barrier Reef to Cairns to day trading to helping a charity with dogs. I mean, she doesn't let the grass grow under her feet.
If it is to be, it's up to me. Is Jasmin's story? I quite like what she talked about. She's got a lot of obviously comprehension and understanding about her mindset as well. So she's worked out that she had some sort of financial stability with her grandparents there, and the triangle she talked about with her great mum, teaching her how to work for it, and that really nice habits around saving money, and that adventurous sort of enjoy life aspect and the final part of the triangle there with her dad. And so, this is a well-lived life year to date, but it's also a story that's got huge upside in it. I'm certainly really, empowered by what Jazz has been able to achieve, and her willingness to take calculated risks in terms of how she was problem solving, and then sort of starting to get in that sequential order. But the other, I think, point that she recognised, that even with her knowledge at a certain level, she's also gone to seek some professional advice as part of that particular story. Maybe losing all of that money in day trading might have, sort of stimulated that a little bit there. But I'm certainly super, acknowledging the great achievement that she's done so far, and all the contribution that she's also doing in terms of the work she does with her Greyhound charity as well. So just an incredible story.
Yeah, for me, the big takeaway from Jazz's story is what tenacity looks like and what resourcefulness looks like, right? So she was able to show both of those traits. And now you can see that she's built a property portfolio. It only requires one for her to get lifestyle by design. So that's just the power of having the clarity of knowing what you want, when you want it, and how much you need to get that. Because not everyone is aspiring to an enormous amount of financial resources, Ben. In Jazz's time, she wants the time. She wants the ability. She's got a big heart, so she wants the ability to do things that really fulfill her heart, but clearly has a mind that needs to be ticking over as well. So clearly is very clear on what is important to her. But she describes her mum as responsible and a power woman. And I think the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, because I think that that would be an ample description of Jazz also.
Well, I mean, she knows now through the planning become what you plan to become. She's looking at early independence, early financial peace. I've circled one of the words that I've written down here, which is drive. And so she has got, this internal drive, and she does need to be stimulated. So stimulation is another thing that I also wrote down when she was talking. And I'm like, if this is not a message for the new year, I don't know what is. Like having Jazz as part of the New Year celebrations and how excited we were at the start of the show, because this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure our community, and what better time to think about this than the start of a new financial year, start thinking about your goal setting. Start thinking about your My Goals, jump on the More platform, get those done. But I did put a challenge out there at last week's episode, Bryce. I did say, I want to put a challenge out there to all of the groups of friends who potentially might need the support of the network. You don't have to get professional help, but you need people who are on your side and who can help you with staying true to the vision and the opportunity you've got in front of you. And that's why I'm putting the challenge out there that the idea we had last week, the surplus challenge. So when you are thinking about your goals for the year, I want you to also think about how much, to Bryce's point, so what the summer series is all about? It's trapping the money, spend less than you earn. Well, just how much can you trap? How much can you focus in on essential versus discretionary spending? And there is no better tool for this challenge that I'm putting out there than the Money Fit tool inside the More platform. What can it do for you? Well, you can compare yourself against your peers. So you can get your age profile and your location profile, and you can compare what you are saving compared to all of the other people that are using the platform. So there'll be thousands, tens of thousands of people use the platform now, use more. But what you're also going to be able to do is you can have a national look. You can have a state look, all anonymized data. So we're not giving away your personal information here, but you will then be able to see in the histogram graphic that we've got there, what percentage profile do you sit in terms of the surplus that you're saving. Put that challenge out to you. That is our challenge for January in terms of getting yourself set up for success, is to work out how much you want to spend for the year that aligns to your personal goals, that aligns to the financial contribution that you want to make to building wealth for tomorrow, and then put it out there and put that challenge out there with your friends. Do it as a group. This is not about judgment. This is not about what's happened in the past. This is about going forward. And this is about making that important change that you need to make. So the challenges out there, Bryce, what is your annual surplus? Go and check it out by using the MoneyFit tool on More.
Do you remember when I was talking about the life hack spend? And it was the Okinawa people in Japan and they had created the Moai, Moais, Moai. What you're saying is create your own little Moai around your peeps, and because it actually gives you longevity, folks. It's going to actually help you grow as a community. But I think you're right there, Ben. If some people don't like to compare how much I earn, what are my assets? Well, why don't you just compare how much surplus you got? And that's a pretty safe way to compare with your friends and create that little Moai as well. And whilst you're at it, Ben, there's been a whole bunch of releases in More, which we think take that platform to another level for free for people to use those cards. But we have got so much that we still want to achieve with that platform in 2024, and we're really excited about what that looks like.
Yeah, look, I mean, we have a major upgrade release coming in a matter of weeks. So I don't want to give too much away, but I can promise you that the reward that you will get out of putting your financial information inside the platform of More, you will start to see some insights and some also opportunities where we're on this mission to be able to give you greater understanding of your numbers, which then allows you to give you greater opportunities. So Bryce talks about, obviously, spend less than you earn, and then, with the difference, invest it. We want your money to work harder for you. That's the mission we're on in terms of helping you with this platform. So More is there for you. To Bryce's point, it's free to download. You can get it on the web or also on the mobile version. The MoneyFit tool, Money Stretch tool, are just on the browser, the cloud version of it. They're not necessarily, they're not on the mobile version of that, but obviously Money Smarts and all of those, Wealth Speed, Wealth Clock, all of those other tools that we've built are also available on the mobile version as well. So why not check it out? Obviously, it's just about which window you go into the particular platform. All your data is stored securely in one database. So that's ultimately available to you as well. So challenges out there, Bryce. The challenges out there.
Challenge is out there, mate. All the links to all of what you just talked about are in the show description. So click on that, folks. But Jazz, thank you for helping us kick off 2024 with a bang. It was an incredible story. We loved chatting with you. We hope that you've inspired an often marginalized group of people, which is the single females. We get that feedback all the time, Ben, which was one of the reasons we were super excited to have Jazz, so she could talk specifically to that lane. And of course, her story is inspiring for people outside of that lane as well. So folks, we hope that acts as inspiration to everyone. And thank you for being so brave and coming on and sharing your story with us today, Jazz. But Ben, we got more where that comes from. Summer series is not done. We are going all the way through January, whilst folks are currently camping in caravans, taking breaks, sipping more pina coladas than they do at any other time of the year, all that sort of fun stuff that summer brings, mate. But we are excited to bring more stories. But until next week,
just remember, Bryce, knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it, just like Jasmin did. Come on. Is 2024 your year for action? We hope so.
Oh, 2024, yeah, your year for action. Sounds good. All right, folks, we will see you next week.
Happy New Year.